Hi guys, Maverick Veteran here. I just want to give you a little bit of an update on yesterday's shooting at Runcorn so that everybody's singing off the same page. But before that, I'm just going to do a little bit of mental health 101, if you like. Bearing in mind, I'm not trained in mental health. I've done no courses in mental health. Anything I know about mental health is because I deal with it all day, every day, up here with my own issues. But that's not a bad thing because I managed to, basically manage it on a daily basis. And all is quite good generally. And by me assisting other people with mental health issues, that acts as a little bit of a diversionary tactic for me because for as long as I'm assisting somebody else, I haven't got any issues, if you get me drift. Now, if I was an optimist, which I am most of the time, I would say that this glass of cold tea is half full. If I'm pessimistic about things, and I'm becoming that way at the moment, I would say that it's half empty. Well, that pretty much works with mental health as well. And anybody can suffer mental health. It's not just veterans. Even though I'm a veteran and I harp on about veteran mental health along with everything else, this affects everybody. Every man, woman, and even children suffer mental health issues. So here we go with Mental Health 101. Imagine this is your stress level. At the moment, you're coping because you're only about 50% full of stress. But everything that happens in your life on a daily basis adds to that stress level. And you've got to keep that level down to a manageable level. But it's becoming more and more difficult with everything that's going on in the world these days. And if you're suffering any form of diagnosed PTSD, depression, anxiety, it's even more difficult to keep that level down. Now then, here's the stress. Your relationship goes bad, adds to your stress level. You've got money issues, it adds to your stress levels. You've got work issues, it adds to your stress levels. Now, what you have to do as your stress level is building up is realize that those stress levels are building up and you need to do something about it. So you go and talk to a friend. You go and do a bit of exercise. You have fun. Remember that? Fun. But then suddenly somebody says you got to wear your mask in the shop. You have a death in the family. The cat's dead. The cat's having kittens. You're told by somebody that you thought was a friend that you were suffering. You told them that you were suffering some form of mental health. I'm not too happy about things today. I'm a little bit depressed. And he turns round and says, grow a pair, son. Man up. You're teetering on the edge now. You can't take much more. One more little bit of stress and you're going to overflow. And bad things happen when you overflow. Suddenly, you're told that there's another death in the family. Oh, fuck. You've overflowed. You can't take any more. And bad things happen when you overflow. When I overflowed, the bad thing was beating somebody up in the pub. Got me a suspended sentence for ABH. when you're doing these bad things because you've overflowed, you often know what you're doing. It's just that you're not able to stop yourself. For some people, it gets even worse because they go and pay the ultimate price. They realize that they're becoming a burden on others. So they take themselves off somewhere quiet and they end it. Well, that's not really the answer, is it? When you go and commit suicide, it doesn't end it for everybody, it ends it for you. But it leaves a scar on the brain of everybody that cares about you, everybody that loves you. So your partner, your family, your friends, your brothers, your sisters. And when it comes to veterans, and I'm talking from personal experience now, your family, your brothers and your sisters are the people that you served with, or they're people that you've got something in common with. Now, I'm not very close to my family. It's just one of those things. But I am very close to veterans. And even though the vast majority of veterans watching this now live or watching this on catch up, worldwide, even enemy veterans, I've got no animosity towards the enemy. As far as I'm concerned, it's two teams playing on a field and the best one wins. There's no animosity against the individual. You're there, you're following orders. So I can have this feeling of care, if you like, with veterans all over the world, friendly or not, because we're out the game now and we don't bear grudges. But when you lose a brother or you lose a sister, it devastates you. It tears you apart. And this scar in here never ever heals up. And a lot of the time, it's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning, and it's the last thing you think about before you go to sleep. That's if you're able to go to sleep, because a lot of people suffering mental health have got so much on their plate and so much going on in their head that they can't even sleep, because the brain's a busy little place and you don't use all your brain, do you? You only use a small proportion of it. Most of it's just there to save the rest of it rattling around in your head, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a brain specialist. But I think what we all have to do is recognize the fact that everybody nowadays suffers a little bit of mental health. We can't be dismissive of it. We have to recognize it in ourselves, and we have to recognize it in other people, and we have to reach out. And reach out works both ways. So if you're suffering from it and you're a bit anxious, a bit depressed, and you know it's linked into something traumatic, or it's just linked into everyday life, then you really just have to pick up the phone and you need to speak to somebody. Anybody, doesn't matter who it is. They don't have to be a specialist. I'm not a specialist. Just ring me up. Say, "Si, can I have a chat?" You'll get me somewhere along the line. Even if you don't get me immediately, you will get me. And if you don't get me, we'll phone somebody else. Because sometimes phoning a stranger is better than phoning somebody that you actually know. So we need to recognize the mental health issues that we've got in our own head. And we need to recognize the mental health issues in others. We need to read those signs. So we can't be dismissive. When Joe Bloggs walks up to us and says, "Hey, John, I'm feeling a bit depressed, you know. I was watching a film last night and I got really, really teary, and then I just went on a slippery slope down. Well, don't laugh it off, because actually that's quite serious. That's a bit of a signpost that this man, this woman, is suffering a little bit, and we need to sort of reach an arm out and say, well, I've just bounced off the bottom. I'm on my way back up. Grab me hand and I'll pull you up with me. But don't be dismissive of people because they shed a tear. And then I used to say a couple of years ago, the next person that tells me to man up, I'm going to punch in the face. Well, I did, and it got me time. Well, doesn't matter. It's water under the bridge now. But had they just assisted me a little bit, we would have probably been best friends now instead of arch enemies, I guess. So, yeah, it's one of those things. So, reach out to people that you know are suffering. And if you are suffering, and this is who this is really directed at, if you are suffering, for fuck's sake, phone somebody, talk to somebody, go and chat to the neighbour. Doesn't matter who it is, but do something. And whatever you do, don't allow your glass to overfill. Every time you feel a little bit down in the dumps, do something about it. Phone somebody, have a laugh, tell a joke, laugh at somebody's joke. Even if it's a shit joke, it doesn't matter. Just do something. But don't sit back on your honkers and say, oh, well, that's it. There's only one way for me, and head to the nearest bridge, because it won't do you any good in the end up. It may solve things for you as the individual, but it won't solve anything for anybody else. And all you do is everybody that you leave behind enters this spiral. And I know what that spiral's like. I had a friend of mine die in my arms, and he was only a couple of years younger than me. He was a baby. I was a baby. We were all babies. And I've blamed myself for that all my life. And that was the first thing that set me a little bit skew-iffy in the head. And I know it's tough. I know it's tough trying to get the assistance, because all the mainstream mental health charities, they don't really care. They're only there for the money and what they can do about it, or what they can do to get the money. That's all they really care about. Your phone combat stress. Oh, excuse me, I'm feeling a bit down in the dumps. Oh, we've got a 6-month waiting list, mate. Can you ring us back in 6 months? Well, can you not just add me to the list now and you phone me in 6 months? Because if I phone you again in 6 months' time, you'll say you got another 6-month waiting list. Help for Heroes is the same. RBL do their best. They'll throw money at the RBL, but they won't always necessarily deal with the issue in your head. And SAFA is the same. You have to turn round to people like Jeff Williams and Jim Wild, Gary Weaving down there at the Fort in Portsmouth. You have to get to Never Surrender, Safety Net. They're the people that really, really care, because they're non-funded and they're doing it for the passion. Well, I and other veterans, and I say veterans, but this applies to civilian personnel as well. If you're suffering, you do the same. You reach out, you ask for a little bit of assistance. Spill the beans, as they say. You're not going to be judged, but you will be put in contact with somebody that can assist you or signpost you in the right direction. Don't be put off by those big charities. I went round that loop for 2 years. Went from the RBL to SAFA to combat stress, back to SAFA. to help for heroes, hidden wounds, they call it, hidden wounds. In the end, I went to a guy called Danny Greeno at the Veterans Charity. He signposted me, and I got straight onto the road to recovery for 2 years. And here I am now. Still a little bit batshit crazy, but I cope with my mental health now. And I'm able to assist other people, even though I haven't got any necessary training. I've just got 2 funny shaped ears that shell-like ears that will listen to your issues. And I won't judge you. I'll shake you by the hand. I'll give you a hug. And we can spend as long as needed together to just get you on a straight line and let you know where you can go for that assistance. But don't be in a position where you think you can't reach out, because you can, because there's more and more people these days that are willing to listen to you. And you know, it affects the people that you live with. It affects the people that you leave behind more than you will ever know. Come on, perk up. If you've got something going on in your head that makes you feel a little bit depressed, a little bit anxious, if you've been traumatized by something recently and you've had a bit of a flashback, chat to somebody about it. Don't give up. You were trained not to fail, so don't fail. How many times were you told, don't fail this because that'll happen? Don't fail this because that'll happen. Well, none of that really matters. Don't think that you cannot fail, because you can fail. But don't fail to such an extent that you think there's only one way out, because there's more than one way out. Trust me. I know. Now, yesterday afternoon, I put a call out because I was worried about a veteran, because there were reports coming in saying that a veteran had been shot by the police because he was running around in Runcorn with a loaded weapon. Well, after dozens of phone calls, dozens of messages, dozens of video clips, and I must take time now to thank everybody that has contacted me over the past 24 hours with those video clips, as depressing as they were. All the little bits of information, can't thank you enough, because this is what it's all about. It's all about communication at the end of the day. We've got to keep the communication going. Now, final bit of information that I got today was, yes, a veteran was shot yesterday in Runcorn by the police. He was shot 2 times, abdomen. He was rushed immediately to hospital. He's operated on, and I believe early this morning they managed to retrieve the 2nd round. So the 2nd bullet that entered his body. He is still critical, but he's expected to make a recovery, and he's now on day 1 of the road to recovery with his mental health issue. Was he armed? Yes, he was armed with a toy gun / airsoft rifle, blue in color, which he purchased because he had such a meltdown that he basically regressed and wanted to play soldiers again, and went on that grassy knoll in Runcorn to play soldiers. So he was basically running a section attack on his own. A lot of people that lived locally, I think, bad-mouthed him at the time, but once they realise that he's actually a veteran and he suffers mental health, they all very quickly came on side. There is a police investigation going on to see whether or not the police were right to open fire when they did. And that's all I know. I can't tell you any more details. I cannot tell you his name. All I can say is that he's a veteran of 22 years. He was a medic. So he's in the business of saving lives. He's in the business of repairing soldiers when they're wounded. He's not in the business of killing, because that's not what Royal Army Medical Corps personnel do. Was it a cry for help? More than likely. Was it perhaps a suicide by proxy? Possibly, but all that will come out in the investigation. But I needed everybody to know that, because it's very, very sad. It's extremely distressing and depressing. And every time a soldier, sailor, airman, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their nationality, when you hear it, it takes a little bit of you with it, because we all belong to this big brotherhood / sisterhood, and we look after each other when we're serving, and we continue to look after each other when we're out. So to summarize, I am just asking every single person watching this, live or on catch up, recognize the signs in yourself and each other. Don't be dismissive about it. Deal with it. Reach out, speak to somebody. It doesn't matter who that somebody is, but reach out and speak to them. Repair it, and then move on and help somebody else. And if we can get that cycle going, hopefully we won't get above the 53, very nearly 54 deaths through suicide that we're currently at. And the boys, Jim Wild and Jeff Williams, will tell you that we've already exceeded last year's total. And, you know, it's not good enough. We can all look for somebody to blame, and ultimately we're going to blame Parliament, the government, and I think that's certainly right and proper, because they're not doing enough to address mental health issues. Mental health issues should be dealt with whilst in service if you're a veteran. So in your final 12 to 24 months, you should be assessed. You should be given the opportunity to speak to a psychologist. You should be sent off to a respite centre. You should be given the referral, so that when you are out, you've got somebody who you can contact with a guaranteed access to that person, instead of relying on the big government funded charities. You need that sanctuary, and that sanctuary should be given to you whilst you're in service. Not leave it until your number's expired, you're out, and then they don't give a toss. It should be dealt with whilst you're in. So if there's anybody from government listening, get one of these sanctuaries up and running. Make sure it's run by people that are in the know. So qualified psychologists. Us veterans will gladly do the day-to-day running of it, and we'll probably do it voluntarily. No uniform, no rank, no pack drill. We're just there to get somebody transitioned from being a service person to becoming a civilian, whilst getting all that anger out their head, all the issues out their head and learning how it is and how you're supposed to cope in Civvy Street. Because, like I've said in the past, I might have 22 years military experience. Well, that's great. But I've missed out on 22 years of civilian experience. And that's not good. Because life out in Civvy Street is pretty bloody shit, to be honest. So reach out. Feeling down, feeling depressed, reach out. Anybody. Doesn't matter who it is, just reach out. On that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. Don't suffer in silence. This call sign is out.